Hey everyone!
It's time for our monthly
Happy
book
Christmas.
haul. Oh yes, it's almost Christmas. I hope you guys get whatever your heart's desire this
Happy
year.
holidays.
Treat yourself to something nice.
That is true.
No matter how small it might be.
Yeah, like a nice mug of hot cocoa.
I know.
Wouldn't that be great? It's so
Love.
cold
Or
out
cookies.
these days.
Cookies are great.
Cookies and hot chocolate, which is way too much sugar, I think. So maybe flip the coffee into sugar. Flip the chocolate into coffee, and I think we've got a really good treat. Anyway,
we are going to share the books that we picked up during the month of November, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start by talking about books that I got from the publishers
That's
for review.
right.
I have 2 finished copies and an ARC. So let's start with the ARC. This book is out in March 2022. It's called The Bone Orchard. It's by Sarah A. Mueller. Has this fantastic cover. So it says, "Welcome to Orchard House." I guess it's a place where like wealthy, influential men frequent that place, basically. It says they come to visit Mistress Charm and those birthed from the fruit of an orchard of bone trees grown in vats made to serve her and the needs of her guests.
Criminy.
Ooh, this sounds creepy and a little unsettling.
Who
and
doesn't
I
love
am
creepy stories
quite
during
interested in
Christmas?
seeing how that plays out. Yeah, again, creepy stories during Christmas. Speaking of like paranormal stuff, we also have a finished copy of The Witch Haven, which is by Sasha Peyton Smith. From what I understand, the main character is accused of using magic to murder someone, and she gets shut up in an asylum only to find out that it's sort of like a witchy boarding school instead. So that's what I vaguely recall from reading it. Also, it has a very cool under the dust jacket design there, which is
Very nice.
pretty
Very
neat.
nice.
Oh, I forgot to mention the first book. This is thanks to the team over at Tor. This one is thanks to the people over at Simon & Schuster. The last one is thanks to the people over at Berkeley Romance. And the book is Archangel's Light by Nalini Singh. This is the 14th book in the Guild Hunter series, which I blasted through last year, basically. And this book is about 2 of my favorite characters, Ilium and Adon, and it examines their relationship, and you sort of get to learn more about their history and what brought them to their present circumstances, and it's so good, so good. This is not the only time you will be seeing a copy of this, because I may have also pre-ordered myself a copy, so this is an extra now.
Even awesomer.
Yes, that is my first section so far, so I'll
Right.
throw it over to you.
Right, moving on to my digital haul. Terseal and Eleanor by Garth Nix has finally come in. It is set in the Old Kingdom universe, where the abhorrent Sabriel is the sort of like titular main character, at least for the first book. It's a set in a universe where, you know, past a certain point, post-Victorian-esque type sort of like country, technology stops working and only magic works now. And the abhorrents are a line of individuals who have the ability to keep the dead dead. So it's like necromancy, but in reverse. And that's really fun and really fresh. They use bells to do it. It's really amazing. Terseal and Eleanor just happen to be Sabriel's parents. So as somebody who's read Sabriel, I know what happens to these guys eventually. So I don't know how it's going to work. So that's a great, again, another prequel-y thing that Garth Nix is sort of like mining. I am there for whatever he's got. Moving forward, Thrawn Ascendancy Book 3 has dropped in sort of like the Timothy Zahn trilogy that has recently been, I think it's canon. Because Thrawn just survived.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not Legends universe, and it's the newest Thrawn books sort of like out there, I want to say. And Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Star Wars universe just happened, in any Star Wars universe, happens to be the only non-human who has ever achieved Grand Admiral status in the Empire, in spite of their bigotry and all of that stuff, because he's just that good. He's able to study a culture through their art and use that knowledge of that culture's behavior to defeat them in combat. It is phenomenal. So love that. Also, Mercy by David Baldacci has finally come out, the 4th book of the Adley Pine series. Adley Pine is an FBI agent who, it's so funny to say FBI agent and like no magic, like on this channel, I find. But every so often I gravitate towards David Baldacci's books as part of the whole thriller, like Born Identity type genre. But Adley just happens to be she's a pretty good FBI agent, but her sister, her twin sister, was abducted when they were little. Recent events have led her on a path to discover how that happened in the first place and uncover some mysteries and how her family, broken as it may be, could be made whole again with the knowledge of where Mercy actually is. So Mercy is the last book. I'm almost done with like the 3rd book, and it's just riveting stuff. Anyway, on that note, I want to give a shout out. I want to give a I do though, because it's so good. Reign of X volumes 5 and 6 are out, and they are, you know, well, 5 is really more sort of like, and again, this is the X-Men, they're on the front foot, blah blah blah. Like The X-Men are cool now. They have their own. Own
the X-Men have their own
country
called Krakoa, and they basically made peace with the rest of it. Made a treaties, whatever. They made an agreement with the rest of humanity that they're like, oh, we can supply you with all these things that are really great, but you just gotta like let us have our own little independent country.
And because we're gonna take over the world eventually anyway. So they do that. They're on the front foot. While Reign of X Volume 5 is really just more sort of the shenanigans that happens, you know, with now having your own country.
Shenanigans,
Volume 6, though, is more isolated stories that sort of play a larger part in the bigger canon. But the character arcs are so good. There's one here where it's about Laura and Darwin and Sync, and they go into this place and they disappear for like hundreds of years. And how they survive that and bring important intel back to like the present time. It's just like magnificent. So that's fun. Highly recommended. And moving on with some of the geeky stuff, I actually went to Anime NYC with Alexa and saw that an author, Christine Brown, had one of her books out. This is Reese and Reeves. It's book 1 of the Earl and Thief.
Oh, I love it.
Right? They're like sort of like, you know, crime fighting, murder mystery solving duo. They don't make murder and mystery, as far as I know.
Kind of gives me a Bungo Stray Dogs.
I know, but like Victorian. Yeah. Like, isn't that just great? Dase's the thief for sure. Oh, or is it Daze and Chuya? We don't know.
I don't know.
Right, but yeah, so I just like that, and they're gonna solve like things. So pick this up. It's really the cover that I'm just like, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I'm like, this cover is dope. Look at that. It's just like anime inspired, and it's great. It's all the first and second books are in Kindle, of course, so you can go to get that there. So shout out to Christine Brown. That's a real shout out. Met her, she signed it. It was lovely. And it's so cute. She's like, many adventures a week. I'm like, okay, let's go. It's so fun. I love that. And then here, the crown of the collection, I want to say, because we are Cardcaptor Sakura.
Trash.
Garbage. This is the special edition, special collector's edition, volume 9, the last volume of the original, the OG Cardcaptor Sakura arc, I want to say. Rightfully so. You've got our 2 main characters, like up front, with a lot of our tears, and then you've got this really lovely, like,
cloak card back.
Cloak. Well, it's
not quite cloak
sort of like the whatever. I don't know what that's called. This is
combination
Sakura's
of symbols.
Yeah, this is Sakura's like symbol. I want to say. We will not show you the last page of this manga because it is a spoiler.
But it
is easily my favorite.
But also, does it hurt?
It's my favorite panel of all time. I spent literally my entire college life with this as my screensaver. Back in the day when we had like desktops, like forever. Like that was it. So totally worth it.
Anyway, back to me now. I'm going to continue by doing, I guess, my digital part of my haul,
That's right.
which is not too many books either. And it kind of ties into the first section of mine because it also, a couple of them are also books that I got for review. So the first is Night Render, which is by Jodi Meadows. It's her upcoming YA fantasy. It involves a world being torn asunder by the malice coming from the demon realm. There are 2 people betrothed, and that's hopefully going to fix the situation. But the other solution, which one part, or the betrothed couple, has decided to embark upon, is to raise the Night Render, although you don't really know whether the Night Render is going to save the world or end it, which is pretty darn fascinating to me. I love Jodi's books and I'm excited to read a new one.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have A Violet Made of Thorns, which is by Gina Chen. This one comes out also in 2022, and it's a dark, enchanting fantasy debut about a morally grey witch, a cursed prince, and a prophecy that ignites their fate-twisted destinies.
There you go.
I'm excited for that one.
Very excited.
And then we have The Charmed List, which is a really cute, obviously contemporary YA romance type story. It's about a main character who has spent most of her life, you know, kind of being a wallflower on the side, and she had a childhood friend who, you know, as childhood friends are wont to do, mysteriously had to disappear for some reason, and she decides, you know, on a whim, like later on senior year, she's like, I'm gonna tackle a bucket list of things that I want to do in the summer, you know, just have a life-changing summer, which is one of my favorite things.
Who doesn't want a life-changing summer?
Yeah, so I am pretty much looking forward to reading that, and of course she reunites with this childhood friend, which we're all here for. And the next book is a book called In a Garden Burning Gold, which is by Rory Carr, and it's a fantasy book where the protagonists are twins. So they have this incredible magic and almost immortality, and they're doing their best to keep their family safe, even if it tears them apart. And it just sounds magical and cool, and I really love the cover, so I'm excited to check that one out as well. All of those books are out in 2022. Night Render is out January, Violet Made of Thorns is out in July, and I want to say In a Garden Burning Gold is out in April, so very excited for all of those, and thank you to all the publishers who so generously approved me to read them. And then we have one ebook that I bought, and I don't know when I'm going to read this because I feel like it's more like a spooky season type read. It's a dark academia murder mystery. So it's a 6 friends, 1 college reunion, 1 unsolved murder. The title of the book is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I heard from my friend Kristen of Merrily Kristen that that book was really good. It's kind of, she said it was sort of like what she had hoped Ninth House was going to be. So I'm really curious now because I'm just like, I'm just curious. I can't help it. Just a fascinating idea for a book. Anyway, that is the end of my digital haul. So I think I'm just gonna go straight into talking about like books that I bought, books that I pre-ordered, all of that stuff. So if we're gonna start with pre-orders, I said this book would show up again. It has.
Here it goes.
Archangel's Light by Nalini Singh, except that this one has a signed bookplate. It says Take Flight. I'm happy to have a signed copy of this. I would love to meet Nalini Singh because I just love the series so much. Highly recommend for anyone looking for like an adult urban fantasy paranormal type story. It's really good. Then I pre-ordered this from Waterstones. It's Midnight in Everwood, which is by M.A. Kuzniar, and I pre-ordered this simply because my friend Lauren from Fiction Tea told me to read it. So it's got these pretty sprayed edges. This is a sort of Nutcracker inspired story. It's also historical fiction, and I'm excited to see how this author brings those two things together. I'm always a little wary of Nutcracker retellings because the story of the Nutcracker is very much like a fairy tale, and it's kind of hard to ground it in reality. So I'm curious to see, I mean, like, obviously this is a fantasy, so there's some level of magic in it, but like I'm curious to see what her take on it is going to be, especially because like as an adult the story isn't quite as magical for me as it used to be once upon a time, but I'm excited to try that.
Lovely.
And then I was lucky enough to attend my first in-person book event in November, which was really exciting, and it was to celebrate the release of Our Violet Ends by Chloe Gong, which is now a New York Times best-selling book. This is the sequel and finale to the duology that started with These Violent Delights, which is set in 1920 Shanghai. It's inspired by Romeo and Juliet, except that Chloe Gong kind of does her own thing with those elements. So you have 2 characters who are at odds. We have Roma and Juliet, and they are part of 2 different sort of rival factions in Shanghai at that time, except that they end up having to team up because there is this sort of mysterious illness, murder thing happening in their city, and they have to figure out what's going on. And this is the sequel. I haven't read it yet, but I have heard that it will probably decimate me, and I am frightened for my feelings.
Nice.
And then I pre-ordered through Illumicrate this beautiful hardcover edition of Lore Olympus, which is by Rachel Smith, and this is volume 1. And I have heard nothing but praise from Kristen as well for this one, and she keeps insisting I should read it because she just thinks I'm going to love it. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling of sorts, except in graphic novel form, which is pretty exciting. And the reason I pre-ordered it from Illumicrate is because I'm a sucker for pretty sprayed edges. And this has very pretty sprayed edges in this like ombre effect with all of my favorite colors. But yeah, I'm super excited. Lore Olympus is basically a webtoon that's actually currently still running. But I am excited for, you know, this author and illustrator that it got published in an actual traditional format. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm excited to check it out for myself. All right, so we went to Barnes & Noble a couple of days ago.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, and Mackie was nice enough to buy me books because that's just the kind of person he is.
Who I am.
So the first book is A Season for Second Chances, which is by Jenny Bayliss. I actually read a book from her last year called The 12 Dates of Christmas, which I really enjoyed. So this one is a bit different. It's still set in the winter, I think, but it is set in a seaside town, and it offers a recently separated restaurateur a fresh start and possibly a new lease on love. So second chances, second chances.
There you go.
Living. I also picked up a copy of The Bone Witch, which is by Rin Chupeco. I have been reading this series throughout November. I'm currently like partway through the second one, and it is so good. Like the first time I read it, I think I was still adjusting to being more of a heavy on the fantasy reading type reader. Now that I've read a lot more fantasy, for some reason the story just clicked. Like, I think the world is fascinating. I think the characters are great, so I'm really excited to have a finished copy. It's about a character named Taya, and she basically raises her brother from the dead unintentionally, and that marks her off as a dark Asha or a bone witch, as they're called, and they're a little bit ostracized in the kingdom that they live in. But it looks like there's a lot of like court intrigue and power plays going on behind the scenes, and Taya finds herself swept up in all that, and it's so good, you guys, so good. And then I have a book that I've been meaning to read for some time now. It's a historical fiction novel from Elizabeth Gilbert, who you guys might know as the author of Eat, Pray, Love. This is City of Girls, this is the paperback version, and it's about a 19-year-old lady named Vivian. She gets kicked out of Vassar College, and then she ends up just getting sent to Manhattan to live with her aunt, and her life sort of changes there. And I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. It just sounds really interesting, and I'm a sucker for historical fiction set in New York, so
yes,
very excited about that. Also, side note, so Mackie mentioned in our TBR video that he is reading or going to start reading the Wheel of Time series. Yes. We actually went to a installation that they had at the Amazon bookstore on 34th Street, and it was really cool. I have a reel on my Instagram with like what it looked like and everything. But they also gave us these wooden bookmarks, which are pretty cool. They have your characters from the show, so Matt and Nynaeve, who are my favorite characters. I'm kind of sad I couldn't get more, because I would have loved to get Lan also, because I love Lan. Yeah, I love them. I also did more book shopping, because apparently that's just how it rolls. So I went out with Rachel at the start of the month, my friend Rachel, and I bought books because we went to, I want to say 3 different bookstores, and at each bookstore I bought something, because, you know, that's just how we roll, apparently. So from Books Are Magic, which is one of my favorite indies in Brooklyn, I have this copy of The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, which we don't own yet. You might know we collect copies, or I collect copies of The Secret Garden and A Little Princess, and I like collecting pretty ones. This is Penguin Threads, I want to say, is the name of the collection. Yeah, one of my favorite childhood classics. Then, because of this cover, I literally picked it up because of this cover and this title. It's The Snowball by Bridget Brophy. It's so shiny. Honestly, I just picked it up because of the cover. So it's set in London on New Year's Eve, and then it says, Anna stands alone, mourning her youth, until the clock chimes midnight and a mysterious masked figure emerges. I mean, honestly, Masquerade Ball, New Year's Eve. What's not to love?
What's not to love?
From Greenlight Bookstore, I think, in Brooklyn, I bought A Certain Appeal, which is by Vanessa King, and this is like a modern Pride and Prejudice contemporary romance retelling. My friend DJ has read it and he loved it, and I'm super excited to read it myself. It sort of sets everything in New York City, and you know, I'm a sucker again for stories set in New York City, so excited for that. And then from Center for Fiction in Brooklyn as well, I bought Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This is another one of her vampire books. It's like a noir book, but with vampire lore, set in Mexico City, which sounds really cool. I actually have 3 different books by this author in my TBR, so I should probably get to reading them faster. I love the cover of this one so much. This is like a new edition of it, and it's just like, look at that. Just look at it. Gorgeous. So I'm looking forward to checking that one out as well. So I also went to Barnes & Noble with my friend Danica. We like to go to Barnes & Noble at least once a month together, and I ended up picking up 2 different Hades and Persephone retellings when I went to this Barnes & Noble. So first one is A Touch of Darkness, which is by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a modern, they're both modern Hades and Persephone's retellings, so Hades and Persephone retellings, so I might as well just show you the other one. Neon Gods by Katie Roberts.
There we go.
Katie Robert. I fully intend to read both of these, and Lore Olympus, because you know, Hades and Persephone, it's a thing. We're gonna make that happen. Actually, they all go pretty well together.
Yeah, plus it's winter, so she's totally down there with Hades like right now.
Ta-da! They all go so well together. Yeah, I'm curious to see which of the 3. I feel like Lore Olympus will be the one I like the best, but I also am just in the mood for that whole angst of like the Hades and Persephone relationship and how it is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking both of those things out. And then the last 2 things in this haul I bought specifically because I'm getting new dust jackets for the series from the company Nerdy Ink, and I really enjoy their dust jackets. I have a lot of them. Yeah, so I now have new hardcover copies of A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Frost and Starlight. So this is the first book in that series. This is the novella that comes after the 3rd book in the series. The other 2 are currently out of print as hardcovers, which is terrifying to me, but I will find them eventually. A Court of Thorns and Roses is Sarah's technically new adult. It should have been new adult from the beginning. It's now being published as adult books. This is about Feyre, who finds herself doing something that catches the eye of the Fae, and then she gets taken captive, taken across the wall into Prythian, where she has to live out her sentence. It's a whole thing. I haven't reread this series in a while now, actually, although the new book did come out earlier this year and I love that. But yeah, I do think I should reread them. I don't think Maki will enjoy them, but I'm kind of tempted to have him read it with me just to see what happens.
I think the plan was for me to like do a live reading of it, like for
I feel like I honestly feel like I never mind. I don't even want to preface it so he doesn't know anything. Now we can move on to, this is sort of a shared portion of the haul. So this next book that Maki's going to show you, we actually got from Simon & Schuster as well. They generously sent us a paperback edition of something we really love.
It is a beautiful
paperback edition of Chain of Gold.
And it's got that traditional sort of like page opens up, you've got like that little shadow huntery like, you know, thing, blurry thing there. But you've got the spine.
The spines.
There you go.
It is the reason we are buying all these paperbacks, because we love the spines together.
We're gonna assume this is
I think that's
Cordelia Carstairs, who is just magnificent in this cover. And so yeah.
So thanks to Simon & Schuster for that.
So there was much deliberation as to whether we should
get this next thing or
not. And by much deliberation, I mean like what? 30 seconds of just like us going, how do we get it? With no real...
It was partially because I was like, do we really need another whole set of this series? Do we really need another one where the covers are pretty similar? And then Maki points out that technically the colors are different because the covers are different because the colors are different, and the colors are also my favorite colors.
Yeah. So what's to say no? So on that note,
obviously when they became available, guess who immediately hit pre-order and was like, let's do it.
So let's do them one by one, shall we? Because this is the...
These are all from Fairy Loot, who do amazing editions. They are also slightly different from our other editions because they have the rune on top, which is not...
So let's look at this. This is Lady Midnight.
This is Lady Midnight.
And easily Alexa's favorite colors.
Yes.
So there's
like
clear
a bluish
tealish sheen to the front. Because that's the theme. Look at that. There you go. Rune up on top, sprayed edges.
And then...
look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous inner art right there.
Beautiful.
Of our two
I love them so much.
Best friends. I see that, like...
it also has a ribbon bookmark.
But so ribbon bookmark, we'll go to the other bit, but look at that. Look at the foliage. This book has been foiled.
Are you sure it's the book that's been foiled?
Well, love, you know, is love is love. And then you've got the
bookmark
little
right there.
Bookmark right there.
Grab it.
It's so collectory.
I love it. I love it so much.
And then one of the arguments was like, well, you know, should we get this? And I'm just like, well, you love Lady Midnight.
I do. Lady Midnight is actually one of my top 5.
You know, so even if both of us like are like we do not like neither of us appreciated how this book ended. Here it is, Lord of Shadows. It's got the Voyance rune, or I don't know if that's the Voyance rune, but
so.
You know, it mocks me because it's like, didn't you see that coming? No, we did not.
Oh my god, I did not think of that, but yes. Same thing, it's got the
this purplish tinge to the front.
And then it's also got like the ribbon bookmark and everything.
And also...
And the rune is also printed on the hardcover. And it also has art. Beautiful art.
Look
three
at
more
these
characters
three
from the Dark Artifices.
Who could they be? This one is, one of them is Fae. No, that's...
One of them is Fae, one of them is half Fae.
That's right.
And one of them's human.
And one of them's fully human. So it's like a gradient.
Anyway, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And so we've got Kieran all the way to the, you know, over here.
Christina,
this is Christina and Mark.
I like how we never named the other two. We were just like, those two. It's them.
What's the name? It's Julian and Emma Carstairs and Julian Blackthorne, Mark Blackthorne.
The art is so beautiful.
The art is just gorgeous. And of course, to cap things off beautifully, magnificently, and this is also another one of Alexa's colors.
Hot pink.
Look at the hot pink Queen of Air and Darkness, right? You've got, and I forget which rune this is.
Makes me burn with rage.
So let's look at the foliage, right? Pink, gorgeous, right? Matches the sprayed edges, but the art on the inside
I love this art so much.
Is this Kit and Tai?
Yes, it's Kit and
Tai.
Tai.
There you go. Kit is Johnny Rook's boy. They meet him at a market.
And Tai is a blackthorn.
it's so terrible. And Tai is a blackthorn. So you've got them. They sort of have this whole Bonnie and Clyde thing going for them.
I love
with this whole thing, and
I
it is gorgeous. So this is Alexa's favorite book. Of this.
No, it's not. Lady Midnight is my favorite book.
Favorite ending.
I'm sorry, this is an exclusive 5th anniversary edition.
Right, it's got like a signed little thing from Cassie.
Which is pretty cool.
Wonderful.
So worth it. Worth every penny I spent on that.
And that's the end of this haul.
And that is the end of this haul. I mean, we haven't had nearly as much Shadowhunter stuff as we once did when we were still busy collecting. Well, I was still busy collecting all of the things.
Only because you sort of like max out at a certain level, right? There's only so much Shadowhunter.
The only one that I think we need in our collection that we don't have yet is the Rune edition of Lady Midnight, which is almost impossible to find because it is
unless you can drop like a couple of $1,000.
I know, it's so expensive,
My
but that is
God.
the only thing that I need to complete one of our collections.
That's
so
true. Like it's
maybe one day, you never know. We actually found the other 2 Rune editions of that series by accident.
randomly in
So
Australia.
maybe it will happen with Lady Midnight. You never know.
You
We're just
never
gonna
know.
manifest that into the universe. Anyway, that is our book haul for the month of November. We hope you enjoyed it. If you're excited about any of the books, let us know, especially the ones that we have yet to read, because then, you know, we could read them sooner, maybe, if our TBRs cooperate. Oh, I'm sorry, our possibility pass cooperate.
Boy, oh boy.
Anyway, we will see you guys in a new video soon. Bye!